Camera, click goes the second camera. Eric reached the back door. It wasn't much of a trip, but it was a nice day for it nonetheless. There was a notice pinned on the door by a pin. L.V. Beethoven, I am deaf. Aha, that explains a lot, thought Eric. Completely incorrectly, of course. It only explained two things, which isn't a lot. Well, unless it was two brontosauruses. Next to the door, there were a series of blank cards and a marker pen. Highly unlikely, it's true, but necessary for the next line. As Eric, in a sudden, either one would have worked, as Eric, in a sudden burst of inspiration, took the cards and pen back to the bay window. You'd need to find the other video to get that bit. Knock, knock, he wrote on a card and held it up. The man inside the room looked up, noticed Eric, and beckoned him to the door, opening it as Eric reached it. Not so loud, shouted the man, pointing at the card. I'm sorry, wrote Eric on the next card, making sure to use apologetic handwriting. So I should think, shouted Beethoven, for it was he, as you've probably guessed. Not that the title of the chapter wasn't a pretty big clue. I've got neighbours, you know. Actually, he had neighbours. Eric didn't know him, never having been in these parts before. Well, don't just stand there. Come in, shouted Beethoven. Eric came in and was led into the aforementioned music room for no better reason than it saved me describing another one. Who are you and what do you want? Eric wrote fast. Fast? Shouted Beethoven. What does that mean? It means quickly, wrote Eric, rapidly running out of cards. But we don't have time to go into that now. Returning to Beethoven's questions, he quickly wrote. 1. A Wobble. 2. A Porsche. 2B. A girlfriend. C. Spot cream that works. D. A better job, or one preceded by the word below. E. World peace. R. To learn the alphabet. F. Decent sized portions in McDucks. G. Broadband speed that actually matches the advert for it. H. A better part in Paul Murphy's next book. I. To interview you. Eric was quite out of breath by the time he got all that off his chest, and quite out of cards too. What do you want to ask me? Shouted Beethoven, thinking to himself, Christ, this boy writes a lot. Everything, said the cardless Eric. What? Everything, shouted the cardless Eric. What? Everything, screamed the cardless Eric. What? Only another 36 pages of this to go, folks. Can you lip read? Yes. Thank fuck for that, said Eric, and wrote everything on his lip. Everything, asked Beethoven. Well, okay, but since you've only got thin lips, we'd better make it a monologue, which is a log recorded before stereo was widely available. So, what can I tell you, began Beethoven at the beginning, although only of that line. Well, my full name is Ludwig van Beethoven, and I have one brother, Ludwig van Rentel. He's taller than me. Yes, he's a higher van. Oh. We come from a musical family. My mother was an oboe. My father was an oboe player, so they were well matched, except for boxing. Luckily, we didn't have that much stuff that needed to be put in boxes. We were a poor family. We had plenty of money. We were just a poor excuse for a family. I suppose you could say that my father was a stern man. He had the rear end of a boat tied to his back. I think he used to take up a lot of the bed, because every night I could hear my mother saying to him, roll over. God knows how the Berry family next door put up with it. We moved here when my father was a young man because of work. He was afraid he might find some at the place we were to before, which is a piece of wood, of course, to before. These are coming so fast and my lips don't keep up with them. I didn't have many interests as a child. Then again, there's not a lot in this day and age to be interested in. We don't even have the Reader's Digest yet to send us stuff to throw away unopened. So I became close to my music. My father made me sleep in a double bass case. He was a cruel man. The double bass was still in it. I always knew that he preferred my brother, which was proved when he got the piano. I'll never forget that day. Mother came rushing in and said to my father, Ernst, which really cheesed him off because his name was Leonard. Ernst, she said, it's young Ludwig. He's got the piano. Send for the doctor, woman, my father cried. I can't, the doctor's a man. Well, send for one of those two. Which two? Eventually, this witty marital banter was sorted out, and my father soon recovered consciousness. The doctor arrived and quickly cured my brother of the piano, but by then I'd become infected myself. Alas, there was no money left now for medicinal treatment for me, only for whiskey. I was bedridden for weeks. What good riding in bed over me was supposed to do, I don't know. But the family seemed to enjoy it. For a while it looked as though I was going to get better. "We'll soon see about that," said my father, and doubled the dose. He promised first refusal on me to a man called Frankenstein. I lay in bed, groaning and writhing, and that was just due to thinking about Lily Pleasure Spot, the local pin-up girl. I found out years later that it's actually quite painful having a pin-up there. My condition worsened rapidly, and so did my underwear. My mother tried Dad's, but that didn't do the trick. It worked on the underwear, though. I had a fever, a rash, and an Ed Sheeran album. Boy, was I suffering. "Is there anything we can do to make you more comfortable, son?" my sympathetic mother caringly used to ask in regular postcards from their holidays. "Well, you could feed me," I'd write back. "Oh, you tease," she'd say. "Isn't it nice that he's kept his sense of humour, Ernst?" My father seemed unimpressed, and this was from a man who could barely keep his balance. In the end, they had to call for the doctor. They managed to fit me in on a package deal with some measles inoculations. The doctor took one look at me and said it was the worst case of piano he'd ever seen, and also that if I didn't stop thinking about Lily Pleasure Spot, I'd go deaf. At least, I think that's what he said. He diagnosed immediate treatment. The piano was taking hold daily now. It was almost fully developed. You know how long these pictures take. Even as we spoke, the lid was forming, and the legs were already fully grown, which is more than Tom Cruise could say. Love you, Tom, please don't sue me. They took me to the Vienna hospital for the musical instruments in a horse-drawn carriage, and a terrible drawing it was as well. Still, it won the Turner Art Prize that year. First time in living memory that half a wombat, a pile of used tissues, or 8 block bricks set in cow shit hadn't won it. The horse now does family portraits of the royal family from a studio in Cadiz, and occasionally runs in the Grand National as well. He's the one in the beret. Lost to Salvador Dali by a knack. Ah, my jaw's going. Do apologise. It's neurone disease. That's taken some of the shine off the jokes, hasn't it? They took me to the Vienna hospital for musical instruments in a horse-drawn carriage, and a terrible drawing it was as well. Still, it won the Turner Art Prize that year. The first time in living memory that half a wombat, a pile of used tissues, or 8 bricks set in cow shit hadn't won it. The horse now does family portraits of the royal family from a studio in Cadiz, and occasionally runs in the Grand National as well. He's the one in the beret. Lost to Salvador Dali by a neck and a moustache last year, and the year before that lost to Picasso by 5 heads and 6 eyes. At the hospital, I was checked in under an assumed name, not long for this world. I was rushed immediately to the operating room, but I said, "Listen, I can't operate on anyone now. I'm growing a piano." They were very understanding, and let me go back to bed after a quick burst of "We'll Meet Again" played on my gonads. One by one, the finest, most caring doctors in all the land would completely ignore me. I was visited by a couple of second-hand musical instrument salesmen. They made me an offer for the piano if I didn't pull through, but no one else ever came to see me. And so I lay there in the solitary confinement wing of the Adolphus Bratwurst Memorial Hospital, condemned, suffering from severe piano and severer flatulence. It was a worry that the two would combine and turn me into a pianola. Just as my despair was becoming too deep, salvation came in a most unexpected form. Lotion, which was brought to me by Nurse Beverly Salvation. Oh, would that there were an army of her. She walked into my room unannounced one day and caught me playing with myself. "That's a lovely tune," she said. "Please go on." I went on the carpet, which took the smile off her face, and also the pattern off the carpet. At first I was too embarrassed. I only knew 2 songs. I was very naive, but after some cajoling, I've always enjoyed a nice cajole, I continued. After that I went from strength to double strength in no time at all, spurred on by Beverly's encouragement and encouraged by Beverly's spurs. What had seemed to be a terrible illness was now reaping dividends, although I could still only go shopping in F-minor. Then, one day the Surgeon General came to my room and told me that they had found a gap in their waiting lists and would be operating immediately in 2 years' time. "No, no," I screamed. "I don't want to be cured." "Who says we'll cure you?" said the surgeon. "We just like operating on people." I tried to explain that I had become attached to my now fully grown piano almost as much as it had become attached to me. It no longer seemed a curse or a burden, even though it weighed 1/4 of a ton undressed. But so did Marlon Brando, and he was all right. I fought the doctors tooth and nail, which I always thought were strange names for doctors, while the piano, now speaking up for itself, fought the piano and furniture polish. Okay, I'm going to stop for a little bit, try and sort my jaws out, and then come back and read some more from Paul Murphy's book, Eric Wobble, Finds a Time Machine. You can just about see how ill I've gotten actually, can't you, over the last year.